Hi everyone, it's Majorie here from the Punk Priestess and happy Witchy Wednesdays. We are going to talk about the astrology of the week, pull some tarot cards, and we're just going to get right into it. We have a lot to cover because we do have a new moon in Scorpio this week. We also have Mars going into Leo, so that's major. And we also have our election day next week in this country. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on. I'm not going to go deep into Kamala and Trump's charts. This has been done by many astrologers, and I will post some credible videos and Substack articles that have already been very thoroughly done on this astrology for the election. So I'm not going to dive into that here, but I think it's really interesting with these Sabian symbols that we're getting like a mood, we're getting a vibe of the times with these transits, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Just to kind of briefly go over some of the aspects that are happening this week. One I already talked about extensively last week, and also make sure that you're subscribing to my Substack because I do post in depth more of the astrology of the week, as well as like pictures, memes, playlist, charts, all the stuff. So make sure you're subscribing to my Substack because you get like all the tea there. But I already talked about Mercury opposing Uranus. So that's happening now, going to be into the 31st. And then on the 31st to the 1st, we have Mercury trine Neptune. We have on the 1st of November, we have our new moon in Scorpio. And then we also have from November 1st to the 2nd, Mercury trining Mars. And on the 2nd as well, Mercury sextiling Pluto, and then Mercury entering Sagittarius. From the 2nd to the 6th, and this is what we're going to be covering, it's pretty major. This is a 4-day transit, and this is Mars opposing Pluto. And then we have on the 3rd, Mars entering Leo, so this is major. And then on the 3rd as well, we have Venus opposing Jupiter. On the 4th, also as well on the 3rd, we have Venus trining Chiron. And then from the 4th to the 5th, we have the Sun trining Saturn. And then on the 6th, we have Mercury trining the North Node. So those are our aspects of the week. And we're going to be diving into the Sabian symbols for almost all of them. There's a lot here. There's definitely like themes you're going to be seeing throughout. And I think it's also interesting if you go to you go to my Instagram and my TikTok, I posted the Tarot Tuesdays, and it was the 7 of Swords. And that is definitely the vibe, the vibe of what's to come. What was the 7 of Swords reversed? But, you know, we're going to look at the duality of that tarot card. But this is definitely what's already been in the mist behind the scenes, and what's going to continue to circulate consciously for all of us in the next several days. So, you know, keep your third eye open. But before we dive into the astrology, let's go pull some tarot cards and some oracle cards and kind of see just, you know, what's going on, like a good energetic check-in. I'm drinking some coffee here. I have my House Witch mug. If you've ever been to House Witch in Salem, it's like the best place ever, but it's witches are the future. So I love this mug. Yeah, let's kind of pull some cards. It is a very like energetically stressful time for empaths, intuitives, healers. You know, you're feeling it. You're feeling the energy. It's you know, it has been unsettling, but it's just like this is when our optimism is tested. This is when we have to really remain in our peace. We have to really remain in our strength. And we have to remind ourselves the tarot card for 2024 is the strength card. And I think it's interesting that the day before the election, we do have Mars moving into Leo, which is the strength card energy. So I think it's really like this is a huge test. It's been a long time since I've personally been tested like this, not just because of the election, but with other things going on. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a strength year. It's a year you're not going to forget. I mean, Leo energy is not subtle, but holy cow, I was not prepared for for 2024 to be like this. I mean, I knew it was gonna be crazy around this time, but I just think the months leading up to this timing is really interesting. So, as always, if you're subscribing to my Substack, I lay out where I get all of the decks from for these cards, so you can get all the details and know where to purchase them if you do like to see them. And it is hard for me to show a picture, or I guess just show the whole spread during this reading. So just make sure that you go on my Substack and look at a picture of the spread if you are curious. But I will be showing the cards to you. So I'm just gonna start from main energy here. Yeah, this is about right. Tarot's been so obvious recently, it's just like, we're not trying to conflict you. And I'm like, thank you for that. But I do have our Six of Swords. The Six of Swords is coming in, and then I have this Oracle card of the cycle. And it's a lot. I think there's a lot in our mind. It's like, how many cycles of trauma, how many cycles of stress, anxiety, worry, anxiousness can we surpass in a freaking lifetime, in a month, in a week, in a day? And, it's a lot. And it's just what I've noticed going on social media, and I don't like follow like a lot of political accounts or things like that, or even like TikTok, but it's just like so many accounts, so many creators coming out, kind of recycling the same type of content, but it's like the same theme that's being recycled, but it's like different versions of it and different versions of the stories. And I think the main one, of course, which I mean, I'm glad it's circulating. I think this is actually a good thing, is about reproductive, freedom and access and rights, and how that's being jeopardized with this election. And it just kind of seems like you're in this loop. It's like you're going down your Instagram feed, or you're going down your TikTok feed, or whatever, it could be Threads, it could be, Twitter, but it's just like you just keep getting this like cycle of the same stuff. And it could be really good confirmation, like, okay, like there's allies, okay, there's people that are in alignment with my beliefs, or what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing, or what and the reassurance is great, but then it really adds like the pressure like amounts to, oh my gosh, like what if this goes south? And it's just like it's stressing the point, it's nailing like the point into our mind, but it's still like, making it just that much more serious. And I just think like with the Six of Swords too, I'm gonna look at this two ways, because two thoughts are coming into my mind when I see this. I think of this as, yes, we can say people who are conflicted, people who are confused with where they stand or what they believe. And we could also, have this as people who are no longer conflicted and confused and have found their way through the void. And I think this is, it's hard because we want to visualize a future forward. It's always like, oh, I'm going to do this in, this year. I'm going to do this, in this month. But it's hard because with the Six of Swords, like we want to put our mind forward, but we're in this cycle of chaos that it's hard for us to really strategize to, move forward based off of a lot of the unknowns. And I think we have to just start understanding that it's going to be crazy regardless, because unfortunately there's so much division, there's so much I guess there's not like a lot of united energy with people. I think it's just one day in class, our kids would probably learn this, or the next, the alpha generation, maybe not even them, the generation after that will really learn how on a psychological level people got here. And I think it's just, we got to get out of the cycle, but we don't know how to get out of the cycle yet. And we will find this answer. We will find this answer when some of these planets start changing signs and shifting, which will be in March. We're going to have a lot of the major planetary changes, but I also feel like, once Pluto goes into Aquarius, it's going to be a different energy. Once we have, Saturn going direct again in a couple weeks, it's going to be a different energy. Like, I just feel that, hopefully we can get out of this cycle sooner than later of this confused mental state of not necessarily who we're voting for, but just the unknown circumstances of the results of this election, but the aftermath of this election. I think the aftermath is actually the more scarier part. And I do feel at the Six of Swords, we are mentally stressed, conflicted, confused about how to move forward with our futures. And that's why I think we have the answer here at the Sabian Symbols that we're going to read in Dane Renard's Astrological Mandala. So we're going to be talking about that. But I do feel the Six of Swords here is like, we're trying to get ourselves out of an abusive relationship. That's really what it is. We're trying to get ourselves out of an abusive relationship. And it's not just us, it's, other people in solidarity and in community, and just like, how can we get out of this mess? And I think what we saw with Madison Square Gardens was actually a good thing of just like how disgusting, how evil people can be. And how, I think it just really shed a light on a lot of people, especially people who were undecided, or people of different ethnicities who were undecided, of just how disgusting this racism is in our country. And the Six of Swords here, I just feel like we're trying to find a way. We're trying to find a way to, have like decency, decorum, demure energy back into this country on a mass scale. And people have like lost their senses and their mind. And I say this too, like, I didn't grow up with abuse. I was fortunate to have a very, I still do have a very close-knit, loving, supportive family. I didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up in a broken home. I didn't grow up with abuse. A lot of people have, or if they didn't grow up with abuse, they have, I've experienced abuse in my life working in the fashion industry in New York. That's a different story, but I guess like corporate abuse I have experienced. But when it comes to the hands of like emotional abuse that people have gone through or have grown up, in or still are in abusive situations, it is hard to not attract abuse in other areas of your life. And I feel that we got to understand, we have to consciously know when we're being abused, and we have to also understand abusive language. And then we also have to know how we like get away from our abuser. And I think a lot of us who are not in a cult have known what abuse looks like, have seen or have encountered abuse before and have broken free, and have not acknowledged that abuse to continue in their life or to even give it the time of day. And there's others who have just become susceptible to abuse and it's their norm. And I just feel like we have to have, like, we can try to convince people all day, but at the end of the day, they need to find their way through. And I think at this point, if you haven't changed your mind about Trump and his administration and the 2025 project after this Madison Square Garden fiasco on Sunday, then I don't know if there's any saving you. And I feel like the Six of Swords here in the cycle card is just really saying, like, we need to, more than ever, try to find our way out of the tunnel. We have to try to find a way to get out of this cycle. And this cycle is not a cycle of our own creation. The cycle, we have become part of it because we are a tax-paying citizen or person in this country, and we have found ourselves like tied up in this abusive cycle. And we need to get out of it. We can get out of it by shutting off our phone. We can get out of it by not talking about things, but then we can't become numb to the situation we're in. This is not a time to just take SSRs and just be like, you know what, I'm just going to, disassociate. It's like, you have to be aware and present in moments like this. This is how you are coherent and you find your way through. But we can't give up hope. With the Six of Swords, the mother and her child eventually find a way to get on that boat and move forward. This is what I'm pulling here. So I have the High Priestess, I have the Sagittarius card, and then I have the Two of Cups. So, I do think this is very optimistic and hopeful coming in, which is like with this, we have this duality you're going to see with the Sabian symbols, but I do feel we have what I pulled first is the Two of Cups here. And the Two of Cups, yes, it can be a relationship with someone else. It can be a soulmate energy, a soul contract. It can be a romantic connection. It can be a partnership. But it's most importantly the connection that we have with ourselves. And I think this is really teaching us. It's like, yes, we can try to find our way out of these cycles. We can try to find our way out of abuse, out of manipulation, out of deception, out of trickery. We can try to find this way together in community. I mean, we have been doing that, but how do we find it within ourselves? How do we find agency in our own day-to-day lives to come back down to earth, to stay present, and to connect within? And I feel like what the answer to this is the Sagittarius energy, the High Priestess of like, the way that we find our way back home to ourselves, the way that we connect with our soul in these uncertain times when we feel like we have no answer, we don't know our way out of this cycle and it's killing us. Like, waiting for the results is something that can change the course of your life, especially as a woman, is extremely frustrating. It's extremely disorienting. And I was just telling a friend yesterday as we were talking about this a lot. I never thought this was going to be my future. I never thought I was going to be in a place like this in my life, where I would be of age, where I'm like ready to, be a mom in the near future, closer. I was hoping next year potentially, or in the next 2 years, where I might not even have access to do that. Might not even have the choice to do that safely, or even, it might not even be an option for me, or so many other women. But it's just like, I never thought it would be in this place. And it's hard to find a language to describe a situation where a lot of your dreams might deteriorate, they might be gone. But I think what this is saying is like, the only way out is through. We've heard that before, but we have to find time to remain in peace. We have to find time to remain in spirit when you feel like the world is crumbling. But I do think, we're getting out of this cycle. We're getting out of this Pluto Capricorn type of cycle. This is the patriarchy holding on for dear fucking life. And what I mean by this is like, the patriarchy going after women to this extent in 2024 is the last degree of Capricorn. Is the patriarchy, is capitalism, is structures, knowing that their time is up, knowing that they have to move forward into the future. But you have, like, if you fear what you don't know and what you don't understand, you got to do your homework. You got to figure out, you got to educate yourself. You got to find a way to progress. And I think here, the answer is with the Two of Cups of, we have to rely on ourselves to progress. We have to rely on ourselves to stay in hope, to stay in faith, and to stay disciplined in that. We have to not be, we can't fall into self-defeat. We can't lose the plots. With Sagittarius, this is spiritual, this is religion. Traditionally, it can be religion as well, but we have to have our own spiritual truth and belief be our compass and to guide us through these times. And we have the help of the High Priestess. As you remember, like the Fool's Journey in tarot, it's getting counsel from the High Priestess first, and then the Empress, and then it consults a more masculine figure, which is the Emperor. So I think this is really positive in saying, like, we have to honor the yin energy in our lives. We have to find peace. We have to find some type of transcendence through a spiritual lens, through a spiritual means in our own time, in our own private time with our soul. This is when you pray. This is when you meditate. This is when you have altar. As I'm recording this, I have a Hex the Patriarchy ancestral altar going on, and it's surrounded by rose quartz. It's surrounded by literal pictures of my great grandmothers and a lot of mementos that I get from spirit in crucial moments of my life. I have that all on the altar, and I have a little bit of citrine to like ground to bring a little bit of duality, and then I have some clear quartz there. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know how to really find the language to describe it, but it's just like we have to take time out of our day to focus on our visions for the future, to remind ourselves who we are, and to let that be the journey. We're going to have Sagittarius season start in the next couple weeks. You know, we have already Venus in Sagittarius. We have Mercury moving into Sagittarius relatively soon as well. So, you know, yeah, we have a lot of Sagittarius energy coming. And I think this is going to give us a fresh perspective of how to push through these times. I'm just going to pull some oracle cards. I want to pull from this color oracle deck. And I'm just going to pull another card here from this Death Doula oracle deck. So all right, so I'm going to start this Death Doula oracle deck, and you know, I have what here is techno cleanse. Maybe that's how we get out of the cycle, is just spending less time online. And yeah, I just think like let go of everything. We just have to, you know, go to our original tools, which is maybe our notepad, a pen and paper, maybe, you know, our meditation mat, our yoga mat, taking a walk into the woods, you know, spending some time with friends in solidarity. There's a lot of that with the Sabian symbols coming up. But I do feel with this techno cleanse here, it's just like we need to, you know, we need to let go. We need to cleanse ourselves from always being on. And maybe that's a way that we can try to get out of this cycle of abuse, is this. If we don't see abuse happening every day, or at least like hour by hour, it's hard to, because it's like sensational. We want to stay aware. And I think a lot of us are a little bit more chronically online now because we just want to make sure like, okay, other people are seeing what I'm seeing, right? Other people are aware, other people are, you know, they haven't lost their mind. And I think it's just the constant reinsurance we need, because we've seen so many people subject themselves into a cult mentality and have lost their mind. And I think it's very disorienting for humanity to witness this. And I don't know if some people will ever find their way back. It's like astral projection. Like you want to make sure like you astral project in a room where there's, you know, where you feel safe, so that there's not an entity that comes into your body. And I feel that, I don't know if it might be too late for some people, but then this is what I'm sensing is like the people who have been indoctrinated into this MAGA cult, who have lost the awareness to think for themselves. When we have AI continuously, AI technology would never surpass human intelligence, but when AI comes in a more direct way, because it is going to be an issue. This is something that the Sabian symbols have talked about, and this was written almost 100 years ago, as well as the astrology has been pinpointing for a long time now that AI is going to be huge. And I feel that what we're going to be coming across is like trying to hold on to our humanity. But I think that's why we're in such a crisis, and why people are chronically online, to make sure that people haven't lost their humanity in this presidential election. But also, I do feel that what is going on here too is like the people who have lost their sense of self, their own mind, and their own way of, thinking for themselves, who have been indoctrinated in this cult, are going to be the first ones who are going to kind of lose their mental state to AI. And I'm not sure how this is going to go. I'm not sure what technology is going to come out in the near future. But I do know is that we are going to be in this fight between man and machine, human and machine. And, I think we're going to have to find more and more ways to have a techno cleanse. So if I didn't have an online business, I probably would take more breaks, but unfortunately capitalism. But I do feel, yeah, and this is maybe something that's going to happen too, which might be like the duality of Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, which is, very much technology, very much the internet and the World Wide Web. I do feel like a lot of people are going to be like, I need a cleanse. I need a break. I can't go on. I already know some friends who couldn't be online during this election season. They haven't been on social media since like September. So, I think that's good if you can have those type of boundaries for sure. But I'm going to read about this magenta color here. And let's see if I can find it. Sorry. It's by color, so I'm just trying to, there we go, get it. Okay, so we have this magenta, and I'll just read a little bit about it. It's the maverick nonconformist, breaking social and societal norms, artistic genius, unique, in touch with wild spirit within, authenticity, attractiveness, magnetism, confidence, strong, social, divine, love, bridge to spirit, passionate, soul purpose, and synchronicities. So Aquarius is actually the card for magenta as a zodiac sign. So interesting, we're talking about Aquarius here. Aquarius is wise, eccentric, artistic, futuristic, pioneers with wisdom that spans between timelines. And this is making sure that we have a strong sense of character, which is very much, I think, this Two of Cups coming in. And I think a strong sense of like spiritual connection of our character, standing in our true essence, telling the truth no matter the cost, creates life of their own for others to join, pushes boundaries and limits, travel far and wide. Are you conforming or living in your true essence? Do you feel you can be yourself around those you surround yourself with? Breaks rules or societal norms, magnifies and attracts our manifestations, are to be shown to inspire the world and break molds. And this is definitely what's to come when we have Pluto moving into Aquarius the next 20 years. And then we also have Uranus going into Gemini. That's also like, we're going to have a lot of like Uranian energy here. But I do feel like we just have to choose correctly, and then we can have stuff really start to change and shift. And that's like Aquarius is the future. And I think that's like why it's like we have to connect to our true essence. We have to connect to our true self with the Two of Cups, with our High Priestess, with divinity, with the Sagittarius energy. We can't forget who we are. We can't forget our humanity. We can't forget knowledge and what has come before. And like, Sagittarius is higher knowledge. And I do feel like there is, you can see between the parties who has the higher knowledge and who doesn't. And I think this is something with Sagittarius. It's like learning from the world, and also like, people who have traveled and seen the world and who have interacted and communicated with many different people from many different races and ethnicities and religious backgrounds. They have a different way of life and experiencing the world than people who've just stayed in their own hometown and only know each other, only know what's right in front of them. And that's, I think, a huge difference with people who people are voting for. And I just feel that, yeah, I think there's a lot to change and shift here, but I think that's the reading. I'm pretty satisfied with this. Let's read some astrology. Let's talk about some Sabian symbols here. And yeah, I think this should resonate. Hopefully you feel this energy, but I do think that the magenta card is really good, and I'm going to have a tarot spread to go along with this reading this week. I think it'll be very helpful for everyone. But we're gonna where's my notepad? We're gonna talk about some astrology. I first want to talk about Mercury trining Neptune, and this is like a time when we want to escape and explore feelings. And I think this is definitely what's coming up with the Two of Cups and the High Priestess, and even the Six of Swords reverse. Like, we just want to spend some time like by yourself. And energy is very heavy right now, and we're very exhausted. We're very tired. I, for one, have been like extremely tired. That's why I'm drinking coffee right now, because it's just like the work I do on a full-time basis is, giving readings and is reading astrology for the collective, as well as, just interacting with people, has been a lot. It's been a lot. And you have Mercury trine Neptune, and it's a time when we should just like dive into fantasy, explore, our own inner world. We should talk about our dreams, our wishes. And, this is something I had like a witchy party 2 weeks ago. And this is something that we did. We like wrote down our wishes and dreams and aspirations for the future, so we can like meditate on them and reflect them. And, this is also a good time to study the occult. And, if you want to, music, art, dance, pray. But I do think this is a good time, like, to spend doing something spiritual, doing something esoteric. And that is, this is a trine here. So, it's positive. It's not really action oriented with this trine, but I think it's something that we should do for like, the next couple of days of this week. I just want to read the Sabian symbol for 28 degrees Scorpio here, because this trine is happening with Mercury at 27 degrees and 28 minutes and Neptune at 27 degrees and 30 minutes of Pisces. And I already went over the Sabian symbol for Pisces at 28 degrees. I've been going over this for the past several weeks because Neptune is retrograde. It's been at this Sabian symbol, this degree, for a while. But this will be linked again in my Substack. But the Sabian symbol, just for a refresher for Pisces, is 28 degrees of Pisces, is a fertile garden under the full moon, reveals a variety of full-grown vegetables. And this is abundance. So I think instead of focusing on fear, scarcity mentality, a way to try to get out of this abusive cycle that we're in is to focus on abundance. Let's focus on these dreams and to focus on the essence of the things that we want for our future. So the Sabian symbol for Scorpio here, for Mercury. I'm sorry, I did not do my due diligence and like pin this earlier. But I've talked about this before briefly, but we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth here today. But this is the King of the Fairies approaching his domain. The keynote, the capacity in a man to recognize and to pay homage to an integrating principle at the core of all existence. And this is an inner allegiance. So it's a lot about like consciousness and clairvoyance, but also too, it's like really making sure that when it comes to our domain, like this could be our home, or, if we want to reflect on this, could be the White House. Like, I do feel like when it comes to our domain, or like the domain, we want to meet with it as a place of peace, as a place of like safety, as a place of like a place of creativity and like positivity. And this is really saying like, we want, the king or queen who, has their domain to inspire it with love, to inspire it with, a creative like mind. And that's what the energy that we want to pass. But it's also like when it comes to the domain, we have to keep our ego in check. We need to make sure that we do have a more uplifting, peaceful energy in the domains that we surround ourselves in. And I think with this Mercury trine Neptune, it's how can we create more peace in the world? Well, we have to visualize this. We have to spend time in reflection and meditation, visualizing the ideal domain we want this queen to enter or this queen to create for us. And yeah, it's just we want to feel in control of our inner world, you know, our daydreams, our, you know, fantasies, the deeper mysteries. We want to feel in control. And even in our physical environment, we want to feel in control. And, you know, Scorpio too, it's like control the fantasy, control the daydream. Like Scorpio is a lot about control. But when we have Neptune here, there's a softness and a sweetness. And it's just like no one is in control of your daydream besides you. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to shut out the technology. We need to shut out all the noise and just have some time expanding our own inner world. So the next Sabian symbol I want to talk about is for this new moon in Scorpio, and that's at 9 degrees and 34 minutes. So we're going to read the Sabian symbol for 10 degrees Scorpio here. And it is a fellowship supper reunites old comrades. The keynote, the overturns of human relationships based on a community of work or experience. And this is comrades. So, you know, being around your comrades, being around people who you have had experience with. And, you know, this is really like, you know, we're getting together with people who have like shared histories or visions, you know, maybe for the future that can be rewarding. And I do think this is very optimistic of a new moon, and how we should spend the new moon is, you know, in solidarity. It's different. It's different because, you know, in Scorpio, it always has the reputation of being quite isolated, being quite alone. And, you know, you just kind of think of like the emo brooding energy at the corner of a room. And it's just like, you know, actually, in order to embrace your ideas, in order, you know, like esoteric circles are very much collective and communal. And I feel like this is a way for us to just socialize with like-minded people and friendships. And there can be like a lot of liveliness. And this is where we can have a lot of expansion with our ideas when we're around people who like just share the same type of vision for the future for you, or just, you know, understand it, just like get it. And it's nice. There's no better feeling than being around people who can relate, who can understand, who you don't have to, you know, try to start from A, you know, from the alphabet from A with. You're like, oh, I can meet you at M, or I can meet you all the way through. And it's such a beautiful feeling when you can meet people where they are, and people who are on a spiritual journey, who are a little bit more aware. And I've encountered this so many times throughout my life, and I'm very lucky, especially doing this type of work, that I get to be involved in these type of communities and circles, and you're just around people who just get it. And there's no better feeling of connection than being around people who have like-minded ideals. And I think this is what this is saying. It's like, get together with people. It can be very rewarding. It can be very enjoyable. There's a lot of friendliness, and it's very renewing. It's like a renewal energy here, you know. And it's like with these comrades with, you know, and there's also like food involved. So it's like, you know, nourishing each other with food and drink, and it's like a party. And it's, you know, a lot of activity and a lot of energy, and there's a lot of like new things that get, you know, birthed up, that can be born from being around people. And that's like one thing. This is interesting because this is going to inspire, you know, a lot of this Pluto Aquarius generation of just like a lot of communal collective organizations and groups. And this is where we're going to see a lot of change and like power to the people is through these type of groups. And I, for one, know I have the goal next year to get even more involved in my community and like for certain causes that I believe in, because I never want to witness what I'm witnessing right now again. And what's the better way to make sure history doesn't repeat itself is to get involved in like causes to make sure it never does, and to really feel like you're in control, because it sucks being out of control. And I do think, yeah, but let's make friends, let's meet people. And I think this is going to bring us closer. I think it has brought us closer. And I think it will continue to bring us closer to be around people who are humanitarians and who really want change and who really see a concrete future for change. It's not just an envisioned future. It has the working bones of something to become real. So I think it's a very special new moon in Scorpio. So we have that. I'm just gonna move these up here. The cards are sliding all around. So the next Sabian symbol we're going to talk about is Mercury trining Mars, and Mercury's going to be making some aspects at its last degree in Scorpio before it moves into Sagittarius. So this is kind of the last hurrah of this energy. So we have Mercury trining Mars from the 1st until the 2nd, and this is at 29 degrees and 21 minutes of Scorpio and 29 degrees and 21 minutes of Cancer. So, Mars at its last degree, like, again, a lot of these planets are at that last degree. We have, Pisces, Pluto, Mars, Mercury, and yeah, and even Uranus is like towards the end, it's retrograde, it's moving up a little bit. But the Sabian symbol for 29 degrees Scorpio, a lot of Scorpio energy here. I mean, Scorpio season as well. We will be reading a Sabian symbol for the sun. But the 29 degree is an Indian squaw pleading to the chief for the lives of her children. And this is like an Indian mother or like a Native American. I remember this book was written like a long time ago. But this is love as a principle of redemption. And this is intersection and the religious sense of Mary, the mother. And yeah, it's very motherly energy. But pretty much what this is let me see here, sorry. Lost my place. So this is making sure that we are around people who, or I guess like we're pleading to people that looks out for us. And what we're seeing is that there's a lot of people who don't. And I think this is like, I think the Sabian symbol is very clear, like a mother, pleading to the chief for the lives of her children. And it's like a lot of mothers, in this country are pleading to the government, like, don't like, let us have like, reproductive freedom. Do not have our rights be taken away as women because, or like for our future children, and yeah, it's definitely like scary, for sure. And this is making sure that we have kindness of people with power who are able to help us in times when, we feel like we're endangered or our children are endangered. And yeah, it's intense, but we must find a way to, remain in center, remain in our center, remain in peace. And making sure that we're able to see the goodness in power, see the goodness in people in power, and just make sure that we choose the right, leaders who can protect us and that we can trust. And that's a big one. So yeah, I think, we're here, we're at this place now. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I kind of like, this is the Sabian, yeah, we're just gonna read the Sabian symbols in a row here. But yeah, so for Mercury sextile Pluto, this is 29 degrees Scorpio. But yeah, I do feel we need to make sure that our prayers are a force that brings peace. Like we have to pray. I think we have the High Priestess here, and we have Sagittarius. There's like a religious content here. And then, with Scorpio at 30 degrees, this is all about, like the last three Sabian symbols, the last 2 degrees of Scorpio is just really making sure that we take action on ourselves. We take action, we take accountability. We make sure that we fight for peace, that we fight for our ideals. the Sabian symbol for 30 degrees Scorpio is children in Halloween costumes indulge in various pranks. And this is, society, it needs to be a little bit rebellious sometimes. It like shows its darker side and its willingness to show the darker side. And that's why we have Halloween. So we can be a little bit more tricksy. We can, I guess, yeah, trickster energy, have fun, and be a little scary. It's acceptable in Halloween. Like we have to show that side of human nature, the duality of it. But I do feel, with Scorpio at 30 degrees, Scorpio at 29 degrees, Scorpio at 28 degrees, just kind of saying like, we need to make sure that we have the right people in positions of power, authority, and control, which is very Scorpio, who are, very dominant, who allow us to be our best selves, to allow us to experience duality. And it's, the energy here, like we have, trines, we have sextiles. And that is something that I think is important, with this energy from the first to the second is like, it is, really much in balance and in alignment. And we have here the 29 degrees and 21 minutes of Cancer. So that's 30 degrees of Cancer. And this is a daughter of the American Revolution, the prestige and conservatism of a long maintained heritage. And this is glorification of the past. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but really, with the Sabian symbol, with Mars, Mercury trining Mars, it's like we need to make sure that we fight for what we believe in, that we fight for what is right, and we have to get involved. It can be something political, it can be a social movement, but we're fighting for change, and we're no longer going to accept things that don't work anymore. Certain traditions just don't work in 2024 anymore. Like abandoning, like not having abortion access does not work anymore in 2024. It's never worked. But now we have the tools, the research, the degrees, like a gynecology degree. Like there's so much here that we need to utilize. We need to utilize information. We need to utilize higher education and knowledge. This is Sagittarius. And yeah, 30 degrees of Cancer is just like, we need to make sure that we're moving forward into the future, and that, people who are more conservative, they have to understand, like, yes, we can, respect tradition, but we have to know when we have to move forward with the times. And, we need to make sure we're not just glorifying the past. And that's a lot of like Make America Great Again is glorifying the past, but glorifying the past for who, and I guess for white men, but I don't even know. They've lost the plot, but it's definitely good leaders, gently communicating and guiding their community through evolutionary steps of change. And that is something I think is very positive to come with this transit. And this is from the first to the second. And I think we're continuously seeing and respecting people who acknowledge the past, acknowledge the Constitution, but also know where we need to go and be progressive and move towards the future, and understand that we can't go back. We're not going back. We have to push forward. The past is in the past. It's just a visitation. If you want to, and Cancer is the past, but also Cancer is making its way for Leo, and Leo is it's the individual in terms of creative self-expression, and just preparing for Leo to push forward into a new terrain. But we have to respect and honor the past, but know when the past has had its time, and we have to evolve. So it's a very evolutionary with the Sabian symbol. But I do think it's interesting, like with Mercury here, making sure that we're praying, as a force for, bringing peace, and making sure we have the right emotional forces who can support us and can look after us, and leaders who will advocate for us. And, we're also making sure that we have leaders that we can trust, that we would trust our children with. Because like, if we don't take care of our children in society, that's the number one thing we have to look out for. Then society doesn't have a chance. It doesn't stand. And if you can't take care of the mother who's giving birth to these children, then what kind of life are these children going to have? And that's like one thing people have to sit with. And that's why this trine here is just really kind of saying like, yeah, we need to focus on allowing ourselves to not get tricked by the past, not, have people say it's a joke when it's like totally in your face racism. And, make sure that we stand up for what we believe in. We respect the past, but we need to know when we have to move forward. So, and also too with the Sabian symbol for Mercury sextile and Pluto, I've already gone about this with 30 degrees Capricorn many times, which is pretty much, people in rooms making decisions for our future. And it's very political. It could be CEOs, it could be the president. It's a lot. It's a lot coming here. We want to make sure we have the right leadership, the right energy. So now we're gonna go towards a transit that's 4 days long, and this is like the major transit that I really want to talk about. Oh, and before I move on, I just really want to talk about Mercury entering Sagittarius. So Mercury's gonna enter Sag, and this is going to start this energy before we move into Mercury retrograde, which is going to be towards the end of November. So we have Mercury in Sag, and I just want to read the Sabian symbol here for 1 degree Sagittarius, because I do find that it's really interesting. The one thing I love about the Sabian symbols is that it really gives you a different context of how to think about these zodiac signs. So the Sabian symbol for 1 degree, 1 degree of Sagittarius is a retired army veterans gather to reawaken old memories. The keynote, the will to reaffirm the value of the struggle upon which civilization and group achievements are founded. And this is a great Sabian symbol. Like, as you're seeing, like, we have these Sabian symbols of social collective coming together, and a lot of it has to do with some type of military energy. And I think this is important here because, we have these army vets who have seen so much, who have fought for this country, coming together to talk about their war stories, talk about their experience. And people would be like, oh, well, that's a very interesting Sabian symbol for Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is all about philosophy and higher ideals and spirituality and travel and higher education. And we're talking about the military, but you have to understand that we're coming from Scorpio, and Scorpio is the battlefield. Scorpio is very much the military. Police rules Scorpio. And but this is a retired army. These are retired. This is a thing. It's not an active army. It's a retired army of veterans who are talking about their experience of Scorpio, pretty much. And this is about healing. It's a lot about coming together, sharing history, struggles, or issues, and finding healing with each other. Finding healing and resolve through sharing your stories. And I think it's very therapeutic. It's a very therapeutic Sabian symbol. It's like, okay, before we move on, to 3 degrees of Sagittarius, let's just sit with what we've known, just sit with our experience and share it with other people. A lot of this is just talking. And like I said, we seem like we're in this cycle of people just sharing their stories or talking about things. And, that's how we heal, by sharing our stories. People have to hear our stories. And that helps them like find their own voice and their own truth. And a lot of this is like finding meaning in struggles and processing lessons and philosophy. Philosophy is a huge thing with Sagittarius, and that's why the Sabian symbol is Sagittarius. And a lot of this, coming together and talking about the past and finding solutions, finding resolve, is so that history does not repeat itself. So we can know what happened before, and it will give us new insights as what's to come. And I think that's something you're probably already hearing about it on TikTok, and I'm teaching a class on it as well next year as the astrology of 2025, and going back in time when some of these transits happened. And I feel like, we're learning, okay, the last time Neptune was in Aries, it was during the Civil War. During the Civil War, we had Uranus and Gemini. We're having a lot of these same transits cycle through. And it's a different war, it's a different battle. And I think technology is like a huge component of this. But we have to know what happened before so it can give us new insights of what is to come. And I think, you know, we're learning. And like, I know I have family in the military. I have, you know, my grandfather and a lot of my uncles were in the military and fought in many different wars throughout this, you know, country. And it's just, you know, making sure that we honor their achievements, their battles, but we learn something from them. And, you know, people don't want to go to war. People don't want to fight. And it's going to be interesting how this comes about. But that's Mercury and Sag. What else here? So Mars opposing Pluto. So this is a lot to digest and take in. And I'm going to be talking about this more on my Substack, but you know, 30 degrees of Cancer, and then we have 30 degrees of Capricorn. So we have this direct opposition here. And it's just going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight. You know, it's like, who is going to be able to, yeah, it's just, you know, I'll read the Sabian symbol again for Cancer at 30 degrees. A daughter of the American Revolution. And then the Sabian symbol for Capricorn at 30 degrees is a secret meeting of men responsible for executive decisions in world affairs. So men, women, but it's executive power. And then it's glorification of the past. And this is where the square is. And this is where we're seeing it collectively. So that's going to be, you know, the energy for from the 2nd to the 6th. And, you know, that's what the fight is. It's either we're moving forward and we're progressing into the future, or we're trying to like live in the past. And people, a secret meeting of people responsible for executive decisions in the world affairs are going to be at their centerfold of, you know, these decisions here. So, you know, it's major. It's a major time. Even the astrology is like, this is huge. And, you know, we're having Mars opposing Pluto at 29 degrees and 19 minutes of Cancer. But then on the 3rd, Mars enters Leo. And I'm going to read the Sabian symbol for 1 degrees Leo, because this is where we're coming into. So, you know, it might look like something and then something else is going to come in. So we're moving from Cancer to Leo. We're moving from kind of the motherly energy into the teenager. But this is the Sabian symbol for Leo, and the Sabian symbol is from 1 degree to 15 degrees of Leo, or about combustion. So something's going to combust, and this is blood rushes to a man's head as his vital energies are mobilized under the spur of ambition. An interruption of biopsychic energies into an ego-controlled field of consciousness. And the keynote here is, you know, combustion. Something's going to combust and explode. And this is where we have Sabian symbols. It starts off very like collective, communal, fantasy, dreaming, imaginative, staying in your peace, praying, and then we get to this more hyped up energy. And we've all seen this. We know what's going to happen. And what's going to happen is we're going to have, I mean, a repeat of January 6th, but it's going to be more drastic. I'm not sure what it's going to be, because unfortunately we have Uranus energy cycled in with these Sabian symbols as well. So there's a lot of Uranus, which is very unpredictable. But we have Leo at 0 degrees, eventually going to 1 degrees with the Sabian symbol. And this is courage, confidence, enthusiasm, and creativity can be dangerous if it goes to the head. And I always say that I love Leos. As an Aries, I love Leos. I have so many, important Leo people in my life, family and friends, but I am a firm believer that Leos are always on the spectrum of some type of narcissism. They can't see that life without themselves at the centerfold, because the sun's a ruling planet. They see themselves first. There's a little bit of narcissist there. But I do feel that, the ego, something if the ego is going to go to the head, it's overblown, it's unrealistic, it's anger. There's a lot of danger with this Sabian symbol. It's like the lion that, is roaring. It can't control its temper and it's just attacking. And, who has prominent Leo energy in their chart? Trump and Vance. Vance is a double Leo. And then Trump and Kamala both have their Mars in Leo. But this is definitely a very combative type of Sabian symbol. And it's like rage and it's anger, it's emotions. It's not very rational. It's not a rational response. But some of this is like, we can't act prematurely. We have to wait until all the facts are together. Because people who act prematurely, they're going to have embarrassment. And that's like one thing that Leos don't like, is being embarrassed. And yeah, it's, reckless ambition. It's, a headache energy. And it's thinking with the head and not with the heart. And I think we all know what this is going to be. And that's why the Six of Swords and the cycle card came up, because we need to try to find a way to get out of this abuse. We are in an abusive relationship right now, and we need to find a way out of it. And I think this is really like the boiling point of this abusive person, just being reckless. And this is like where we're going to continue to have the square with Pluto and Mars. Pluto is the underworld. It's bringing a lot up to the surface, and it's at the last degree of the patriarchy at 30 degrees here. And I just think it's really interesting, these degrees in the astrology. The astrology does not lie, but it's going to be very volatile. We have here, and that's for 4 days, it's very stressful. That's why, like, have a spiritual practice, remain in your peace. Venus opposing Jupiter. So this is happening on the 3rd, and this is at 19 degrees and 30 minutes of Sag, opposing 20 degrees and 19 minutes of Gemini. So there's just so much. The 3rd is just a huge day with the astrology. It's just a lot going on here. So I'm going to read these Sabian symbols because it's an opposition. This is also pretty big. So we have here 20 degrees of Sagittarius, and, Venus opposing Jupiter. Jupiter's a lot of expansion, and, Venus, it really wants peace and harmony. And this is pretty much just not really maybe being sure where we're going to expand. It can go, either way. But we have here 20 degrees of Sagittarius. And that is, in an old-fashioned northern village, men cut the ice of a frozen pond for use during the summer. The foresighted use of natural resources to supply future human needs. And this is about planning for the future. So that's a Sabian symbol. And I'm just going to read the Sabian symbol for 21 degrees Gemini. And we're going to compare them and talk about them with this opposition here. I will bookmark this next time. Make it a little bit of a faster process. But we have a turbulent labor demonstration. The revolutionary impact of mental concepts upon the collective emotional and desires of man. So emotional outbursts. So what these Sabian symbols are saying is it's an opposition here. Is that we really need to prepare for seasonal shifts. Like we need to, like, I guess, for example, harvesting food. Like we harvest food so that we can prepare for the winter. We can prepare for when the crops are going to die. And this has a lot to do with, preparing for the future, preparing for, seasonal shifts and changes. Doesn't actually have to be seasonal. This can be like collective political changes. It's about planning ahead and taking action and creative solutions and problem solving. And knowing that there are tough times ahead, but we must do what we need to prepare for the future. And we have to overcome obstacles to fulfill our wants and needs. And I think this is, astrology, it's just really illuminating how the past election, there wasn't so much. With astrology, there was a little bit. I remember 4 years ago that you could read about, astrology and election. I remember this was like in 2016. I took an astrology class in the election in person in New York City, and that was interesting. But it's like I think the astrologers have been very dead on for the past like six months with predicting the astrology of the election and beyond and what's going to happen. And we're not sure about the full details, but we do know a good chunk of it. And I think it's interesting here how like we know what's going to happen, where we know there's going to be a lot of animosity, there's going to be a lot of combative energy, and that's why we're preparing for this to not end. It's not going to be a swift change of power. It's going to be very, very combative and disorienting and stressful. And these Sabian symbols are kind of preparing us, as a lot of the astrologers have been preparing us, like this energy is going to be really tough. And also too, like this is going to be a theme for the next several years in astrology. Like we're in for very, very stressful times because there is going to be a lot of tension, and we have to just prepare that it's not going to be a swift change of power like it was in the past. And Liz Cheney said it best when she was campaigning with Kamala the past week about how she doesn't know if her two sons, I think her sons are in their early 20s, are ever going to see a smooth transition of power again in their lifetime, or in recent history or in recent future. And I think that's very interesting. But that's even saying it here with the Sabian symbol is prepare for it to be very, very, very hard and stressful and dark, and energy is going to transcend into the future. But what we have to do to prepare now is vote early if you can, but also just keep yourself safe and focus on your own healership, focus on solidarity with like-minded people. We've already seen so many Sabian symbols continuously say in many different ways, stay within community, be with like-minded people, because that is where you're going to find solution. Be the change you want to see. Gemini in 21 degrees, standing up when things are not going well. And, it could be people trying to take advantage of other people. It's usually too, there's like temper tantrums, there's tantrums, resisting change, resisting power, feelings of, outburst. And, I mean, literally the Sabian symbol, I just wrote it down, but feelings, one's vote or voice does not count. But this is definitely, yeah, it is like this power shift in outburst, and, yeah, and the labor demonstration. So, that's why it's great that we have unions so that they can fight for what is wrong and what they need change in too. So yeah, sets the stage for a revolution here. So that is really interesting. We're almost done here. And we just have a couple more transits to talk about. So the sun trining Saturn. So this is from the 4th to the 5th. And this is at 12 degrees and 12 degrees and 3 minutes of Sagittarius. And sorry, 12 degrees and 3 minutes of Scorpio and 12 degrees and 48 minutes of Pisces. So we're going to read those Sabian symbols. So this is a trine. You know, we have some positive energy coming in because it's very hostile. Again, there's always duality all the time with astrology, but we're in for next week's going to be really tough. So have your spiritual practice intact. Have your altars ready. Bring your ancestors, you know, with you. Looks like my ancestor candle just blew out a little bit. Okay, so Sun in Scorpio. We're in Scorpio season right now. Crazy to think that. This year has flown by so quickly, but we're going to read 13 degrees here. So an inventor performs a laboratory experiment. The driving urge towards achievement, which is at the root of civilization. So this has a lot to do with intuition being necessary for success. You know, we have a lot of intellectual energy. You know, we're moving into the energy of the teacher. The more Sagittarius energy that we have, we're having like an elevated intellect come in with this, you know, and I think it's interesting, like we have the Scorpio energy bringing a lot of the esoteric knowledge to light, and then we have the expansion of it in Sagittarius. So the Sabian symbol is, you know, making sure that we're thinking outside the box, that we're evolving, we're being creative, we are doing something with our visions, and we're pushing towards change. We're pushing against boundaries towards change. And this is an inventor. And it's interesting too, you know, with Pluto moving into Capricorn. Pluto moving into Aquarius, you know, relatively soon. You know, we're moving into the age of the inventor. And the inventor is going to have a new way of using technology, modern technology, helping us evolve, as well as, you know, really understanding how our intuition and our visions and our creativity can inspire change for the collective. So I think this is a really, you know, interesting Sabian symbol that really does fit with the times. And the Sabian symbol here for 13 degrees Pisces, which is, you know, something that I've mentioned before here last week, but it's an ancient sword used in many battles, is displayed in a museum. So, you know, this is making sure that when the sword energy with our mind, we're using it in right ways. So we talked about that Sabian symbol last week, but it's a lot of like willpower. How are we using our willpower? How are we being more inventive with our willpower? So I think that's interesting. I do think that's really positive for the 4th and the 5th. And so, you know, hopefully like we're using our intellect towards the future. And we can find a lot of creative problem solving and solutions. I do think it would be really helpful for the Sabian symbol and this energy to like get out of a cycle and to get the 6 of Swords upright. It's like, okay, now we find the solution. Now we're able to see clearly for our future. Venus trining Chiron, and this is on the 3rd here of November, and this is 21 degrees Sagittarius, and then 21 degrees Aries. So we'll read the 21 degrees of Sag here. So much this week, but I think it's important. I was originally like, you know, I'm only going to cover half of the astrology this week. And I'm like, I got to do the whole thing because next week is going to be too much to try to go through all of this with all the anticipation and the stress. So 21 degrees Sag. So a child and a dog wearing borrowed sunglasses. And this is emotional cultural energy. And the keynote is the use of imagination and make-believe in anticipating higher stages of development. So it's learning through imitation. And it's making sure that, you know, we have the right leaders, we have the right teachers. And this is very Sagittarius. Sagittarius is like very guru energy. We want to make sure that we're learning by the right people and like we're imitating that. So it's making sure that, yes, we can make believe, we can play, you know, a fantasy out, and we can pretend to, you know, idealize and live some type of, you know, life. It's, you know, make believe, like putting a costume, putting glasses on a dog. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure we do something with those visions and we push our ideals forward. So I do think, yeah, it's making sure that we identify who our guru is, we identify who our leaders are, and we can emulate them. And through this, we kind of embody some of their energy. We kind of become them. We become like our teacher. And that's why we have to make sure we have the right teacher. So we have that. And then we have 21 degrees Aries. And we're back to this like very spiritual energy here with Aries. There's a lot of very spiritual, divinity oriented Sabian symbols for Aries. So let's see if I can find it. So Aries at 21 degrees is Epirus enters the ring and the release of glorification of social aggressiveness. And this has to do with fighting dignity, fighting with dignity, and making sure that we follow the rules. And we're fighting for what we believe in. Fighting for what we believe in. And it's, you know, it's a battle between the yin and the yang, but it's making sure that we step into our visions for the future. It could be overwhelming power. We have like the chai C symbol, but there's always going to be very dualistic. There's always going to be duality with everything. And yeah, that's the Sabian symbols. You know, there's a lot here. I know that kind of was a little bit longer than my normal Witchy Wednesdays, but I think that there's a lot, you know, to talk about. I will, you know, talk more about Mercury trining the North Node in the next week, as well as my Substack. But that is the Witchy Wednesdays. Thank you for your support. And, you know, I feel like, I mean, yeah, it's just the energy of the times are just very stressful and hard right now, but we can't lose our faith. And this is where we use our imagination. This is where we call on our ancestors. This is where we hex the patriarchy. This is where we make sure that we take our time. If we need a techno cleanse, we need a techno cleanse. But, you know, ultimately we need to not forget who we are, and we need to have some type of faith-based, spiritual-based practice. And hopefully that will help us break out of this abusive cycle that we are in, with a lot of the evils of the world. But remain in faith. Make sure that you stay in community with people who, you know, nurture you, support you, share your ideals, that you can find connection and solidarity through those. And like, you can find it online, which we talked about, but it's like really important to be in person with people. And this is where the age of Aquarius is going to begin, when we're in these communal circles. And this is where the change will come from, these groups that we create with like-minded people. So thank you, and I will see you next week, and make sure you're subscribing to my Substack.